Sarah Matthews stared at the contents of her refrigerator, the harsh light illuminating what little remained inside. Half a loaf of bread, a nearly empty jar of peanut butter, and a few bruised apples. The digital clock on the microwave read 5:42 a.m. In just over an hour, her 3 children would wake up, expecting breakfast and packed lunches for school. She closed the refrigerator door and leaned against it, sliding down until she sat on the worn linoleum floor of her small kitchen. The apartment was quiet except for the occasional hum of the aging refrigerator and the distant sounds of early morning traffic from the busy Los Angeles street below. At 37, Sarah had never imagined this would be her life. 8 months ago, her husband Mark had left without warning, leaving behind only a brief note explaining he needed to find himself and couldn't handle the responsibilities of family life anymore. What followed was a financial nightmare, discovering hidden debts, a second mortgage she knew nothing about, and credit cards maxed to their limits. The divorce was still dragging on, and Mark had managed to avoid paying child support by claiming unemployment and moving repeatedly. Sarah had been forced to leave her part-time job as a school librarian to take on full-time work as an administrative assistant at Pacific West Studios, a position that paid just enough to cover rent and utilities, but left little for everything else. "Mom?" A small voice called from the doorway. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and turned to see her youngest, 5-year-old Emma, clutching her worn stuffed rabbit. "Hey, sweetheart, you're up early," Sarah said, forcing brightness into her voice. She opened her arms, and Emma padded across the kitchen to climb into her lap. "I had a dream about Dad," Emma murmured, her head resting against Sarah's chest. Sarah stroked her daughter's hair, unsure of what to say. Emma still asked about Mark regularly, unlike her older siblings who had grown increasingly angry about their father's abandonment. "I know you miss him," Sarah finally said. It was all she could offer without letting bitterness creep into her voice. Emma nodded sleepily. "Can we have pancakes today?" Sarah's heart sank. "Not today, sweetie. How about some toast? We can put cinnamon sugar on top, just how you like it." "Okay," Emma agreed, though disappointment was evident in her voice. Sarah helped Emma back to bed for another hour of sleep, then returned to the kitchen to face her reality. Payday was still 3 days away. She needed to figure out how to stretch what little food remained until then. The pantry held a few cans of soup, some pasta, and a jar of sauce, enough for dinner tonight. But lunches were becoming increasingly difficult. She opened her wallet and counted the cash, $12.47. Maybe enough for a loaf of bread and some lunch meat, if she bought the cheapest kind. She'd skip lunch herself, of course. 2 hours later, after getting the kids fed, dressed, and off to school with the most meager of lunches, half a peanut butter sandwich each, an apple and water, Sarah arrived at Pacific West Studios. The sprawling complex was one of the busier production facilities in Los Angeles, hosting everything from major motion pictures to television shows and commercials. As an administrative assistant in the operations department, Sarah's desk was positioned in a bland office far from the actual sound stages and sets. Her job involved processing paperwork, coordinating facility schedules, and occasionally giving directions to lost delivery people. It wasn't exciting work, but it was steady employment with health insurance for the kids. "Morning, Sarah," called Diane, the department head, as Sarah settled at her desk. "We've got a busy one today. 3 productions wrapping and 2 new ones moving in." Sarah nodded, grateful for the distraction of work. "I'll get started on the transition paperwork right away." "Oh, and the executive producer for the Callahan project wants a tour of Stage 8 at 11. Can you handle that? I've got the budget meeting with finance." "Of course," Sarah agreed, though giving tours was usually Diane's territory. Executives typically expected someone higher up the ladder than an administrative assistant. "Thanks. I owe you one," Diane said before disappearing into her office. The morning passed in a blur of emails, phone calls, and paperwork. At 10:55, Sarah grabbed a visitor badge and facility map, then headed toward the main entrance to meet the executive producer. She moved through the labyrinth of corridors that connected the administrative offices to the main part of the studio, her mind preoccupied with how she would afford groceries before payday. Lost in thought, She rounded a corner and collided with someone walking in the opposite direction. Coffee splashed between them, and Sarah let out a small gasp as hot liquid soaked into her only work-appropriate white blouse. "I'm so sorry," a deep, gentle voice said. Sarah looked up to find herself staring into the face of Keanu Reeves. For a moment, Sarah couldn't speak. Despite working at a studio for almost 6 months, she had managed to avoid any direct encounters with celebrities. They typically stayed in the production areas or private offices, not the administrative corridors where she spent most of her time. Yet here she was, standing before Keanu Reeves himself, coffee dripping from both of their clothes. "That was entirely my fault," he said, his voice exactly as it sounded in films, but softer, more concerned. "I wasn't watching where I was going." Sarah finally found her voice. No, I wasn't paying attention either." She looked down at her blouse, now sporting a large brown stain across the front. It was her only decent work shirt. The others had grown too worn to look professional. Keanu noticed her distress. "Your shirt, I've really messed it up. I'm so sorry." "It's fine," Sarah said automatically, though it wasn't fine at all. She had no spare clothes at work, and no money to buy a replacement. "I should get going. I'm supposed to meet someone for a tour." She tried to step around him, but Keanu gently touched her arm. "Wait, let me at least help you clean up. It's the least I can do." He glanced around and spotted a nearby restroom. "There's paper towels in there, and—" He removed his dark blue zip-up hoodie, revealing a simple black t-shirt underneath. "Here, take this. It'll cover the stain at least." Sarah hesitated. "I couldn't." "Please," he insisted, holding out the hoodie. "I feel terrible about this." Something in his sincere expression made Sarah accept the offering. "Thank you. I'll get it back to you." A small smile crossed his face. "Don't worry about it. Consider it yours." Sarah quickly ducked into the restroom, did her best to blot the coffee from her blouse, then slipped Keanu's hoodie on over it. The garment was much too large for her frame, but it did indeed cover the stain completely. She rolled up the sleeves and zipped it halfway, creating a look that was at least somewhat presentable. When she emerged, she was surprised to find Keanu still waiting in the corridor. "Better?" he asked. "Much better, thank you." "Where are you headed?" "I've been wandering these halls for 20 minutes trying to find Stage 8. Sarah blinked in surprise. "Stage 8? That's actually where I'm going. I'm supposed to give a tour to an executive producer from the Callahan project." Recognition dawned in Keanu's eyes, followed by amusement. "That would be me. I'm executive producing alongside directing, though I think there's been a miscommunication. I'm actually looking for somewhere quiet to prepare for a scene we're shooting later. The tour was more of a courtesy offering from your department head." "Oh." Sarah felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Reeves. I didn't realize." "Please, call me Keanu," he said with a warm smile. "And there's nothing to apologize for. Would you mind still showing me to Stage 8? After that, you can go about your day. I promise not to spill any more coffee on you." Despite her morning's stress, Sarah found herself smiling back. Of course, it's this way. They walked together through the winding corridors of the studio, Sarah pointing out different departments and stages as they passed. Keanu listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions about the facility's history and operations. "So how long have you worked here?" he asked as they approached Stage 8. "Almost 6 months," Sarah replied. "I'm still learning my way around some parts of the complex." "And do you enjoy it? Working at a studio?" The question was asked with such genuine interest that Sarah found herself giving an honest answer rather than her usual polite one. "It's different than what I used to do. I was a school librarian before, but this job has better hours for my situation, and the health insurance is good for my kids." "You have children?" Keanu asked, a new warmth entering his voice. Sarah nodded. "3. Emma is 5, Lucas is 9, and Zoe just turned 12. "That's wonderful," he said, and there was something in his tone, a hint of wistfulness perhaps, that made Sarah believe he meant it. "It must be challenging, working and raising 3 kids." "It is," Sarah admitted, "especially since their father left, but we manage." She hadn't meant to share something so personal, but there was something about Keanu's presence that felt safe, non-judgmental. Before he could respond, they arrived at the entrance to Stage 8. "Here we are," Sarah said, gesturing to the large double doors. They're still setting up for tomorrow's shoot, but you're welcome to use the space to prepare. Thank you, Keanu said. He paused, seeming to consider something. Would you like to come in for a moment? I'd like to properly thank you for your help. Sarah glanced at her watch. I should really get back to my desk. There's a lot of paperwork to process today. Of course, I understand. He extended his hand. It was nice meeting you. Sarah, she supplied, shaking his hand. Sarah Matthews. Sarah, he repeated with a nod. Thank you for your help, and again, I'm sorry about the coffee. It's really okay. Good luck with your scene. As Sarah turned to leave, Keanu called after her. Sarah, one more thing. She looked back. The hoodie looks good on you, better than it did on me. Keep it. With that, he disappeared through the doors of Stage 8, leaving Sarah standing in the corridor, wearing Keanu Reeves' hoodie and feeling, for the first time in months, a small spark of something like joy. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of administrative tasks, but Sarah found her mind repeatedly drifting back to her unexpected encounter with Keanu Reeves. It wasn't just the surreal experience of meeting a famous actor. It was his kindness, the genuine attention he had paid to her words, as if she were more than just a studio employee giving directions. At lunchtime, Sarah retreated to the staff break room, carrying only a small apple she had saved from breakfast and a cup of free office coffee. Usually, she brought leftovers from home, but with the refrigerator nearly empty, there had been nothing to bring. She sat alone at the corner table, taking small bites of the apple to make it last, trying not to think about how hungry she still felt. The break room door swung open, and a group of production assistants entered, talking animatedly. I swear he's the most down-to-earth celebrity I've ever worked with, one young woman was saying. Yesterday he brought coffee for the entire grip department because they had to come in early. That's nothing, another replied. My cousin worked on John Wick 2, and she said Keanu gave a portion of his salary to the stunt team because he thought they deserved more. Sarah listened with interest, slowly sipping her coffee. The stories aligned with the man she had briefly met. Humble, considerate, generous. Hey Sarah, isn't that the Callahan project shooting on your stage today? Asked Miguel, one of the facility's technicians, as he heated his lunch in the microwave. Stage 8, yes, she confirmed. Have you met him yet? Reeves? Sarah nodded. Actually, I bumped into him this morning. Literally. He spilled coffee all over my blouse. She gestured to the hoodie she was still wearing. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Wait, said one of the production assistants. Is that his hoodie? Sarah felt her cheeks flush. He let me borrow it to cover the stain. It was very kind of him. This revelation caused a new flurry of conversation, with several people sharing their own Keanu Reeves stories or ones they had heard. Sarah listened, finishing her meager lunch and trying to ignore the persistent hunger that had become her constant companion these past months. As the break room emptied, Sarah remained at the table, counting the hours until she could pick up the kids from their after-school program. She dreaded facing another evening of trying to make an inadequate dinner stretch to feed 3 growing children. Mind if I join you? Sarah looked up, startled to find Keanu Reeves standing beside her table, holding a tray with 2 sandwiches and 2 bottles of water. Mr. Reeves, I mean Keanu? Of course, she managed, quickly gathering her apple core and empty coffee cup. He sat across from her, sliding one of the sandwiches and water bottles toward her. I thought you might be hungry. I asked around, found out where the staff usually takes lunch. Sarah stared at the sandwich, a generous creation of fresh bread, turkey, avocado, and vegetables from the studio's cafe, her mouth watering involuntarily. Pride made her hesitate. You don't have to do this. I know, he said simply, but I wanted to. Please. The gentle insistence in his voice, free of pity or condescension, made it impossible to refuse. Thank you, she said quietly, taking the sandwich. They ate in companionable silence for a few moments before Keanu spoke again. I hope I'm not intruding on your break. Not at all, Sarah assured him. I'm just surprised you'd want to eat in the staff break room when there's a private dining area for the production team. Keanu shrugged. Too formal. I prefer places like this. He glanced around the modest room with its mismatched furniture and decades-old vending machines. You get to meet real people. There was something so genuine in the way he said, real people, that Sarah couldn't help but smile. Well, I'm about as real as they come. I can tell, he said, his dark eyes studying her with interest. You mentioned you were a librarian before. What made you change careers? The question was innocuous enough, but it touched on the painful reality of Sarah's situation. She considered giving her usual vague answer about needing a change, but again found herself responding honestly. Necessity, mostly. After my husband left, I needed full-time work with benefits and hours that matched my kids' school schedule. The library position was part-time, no benefits. This job pays the bills, mostly. Keanu nodded, listening intently. That couldn't have been easy, making that transition. It wasn't. It still isn't, Sarah admitted. But you do what you have to do for your children. What do they think about their mom working at a movie studio? A small laugh escaped her. They think it's much more glamorous than it is. Zoe, my oldest, keeps asking if I've met any famous people. She gestured toward him. Until today, the answer was no. Keanu smiled. And what about you? Are you a movie fan? When I have time, which isn't often these days. But yes, I especially loved your work in The Matrix and Speed. Classics, he said with a self-deprecating smile. What about your kids? Do they like movies? Sarah's expression softened. They love them. Lucas is obsessed with superhero films. Emma loves anything animated. And Zoe, well, she's getting into those tween comedies now. No Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? He asked with a raised eyebrow. I'm afraid they've never seen it. It's on my list of classics to introduce them to someday. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. Someday. They continued talking as they finished their lunch, the conversation flowing easily from movies to books. Keanu was surprisingly well-read, to life in Los Angeles. Not once did he check his phone or watch, giving Sarah his complete attention, as if their impromptu lunch was the most important meeting of his day. As their lunch break neared its end, Sarah reluctantly gathered her trash. I should get back to my desk. Thank you again for the sandwich. My pleasure, Keanu said, standing when she did. Actually, I have a small favor to ask. Of course, anything. I noticed the studio is hosting a special screening tomorrow evening for crew and their families, some animated film that's not released yet. If your kids are free, maybe you could bring them? I'd like to meet them. Sarah blinked in surprise. You want to meet my children? If that's not overstepping, he added quickly. I understand if it's not convenient. No, it's not that, Sarah explained. It's just the screening. Those tickets are usually reserved for department heads and their families. I'm just an administrative assistant. Keanu considered this for a moment. What if I arranged it? As an executive producer, I'm entitled to a certain number of guest passes. The offer was tempting. Her kids would be thrilled by both the movie and the chance to visit the studio, but Sarah hesitated, not wanting to accept charity. Sensing her reluctance, Keanu added, consider it compensation for excellent tour guide services and coffee-stained trauma. This made Sarah laugh. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? My kids would love it. Great, Keanu said, a genuine smile lighting his features. The screening is at 6. If you give me your number, I can text you the details and have passes left at the gate. They exchanged numbers, and Sarah returned to work feeling more light-hearted than she had in months. It wasn't until she was sitting at her desk again that she realized she had just given her phone number to Keanu Reeves and made plans to see him again. The absurdity of it made her both nervous and strangely happy. The rest of the workday passed quickly, and as Sarah drove to pick up her children from their after-school program, she found herself looking forward to telling them about the movie screening. It would be a rare treat in their recently diminished lives. What she didn't tell them, though, was about meeting Keanu Reeves. That would remain her secret, at least for now. She wasn't sure they would even believe her. That evening, as Sarah stood in her kitchen, staring once again into the near-empty refrigerator, the brief happiness she had felt during lunch with Keanu faded. Reality had a way of asserting itself, and the reality was that she still had 3 hungry children and almost nothing to feed them. Mom, what's for dinner? Lucas called from the living room, where he was supposed to be doing homework, but was instead watching his sister Emma build a tower of blocks. Pasta, Sarah answered, pulling out the last box of spaghetti and jar of sauce from the pantry. It would be enough for tonight, but tomorrow's meals remained a question mark. The $12.47 in her wallet would need to stretch for 2 more days. Zoe entered the kitchen, already changed into her pajamas, though it was only 6:30. At 12, she had become increasingly aware of their financial situation, often wearing the same clothes multiple days to reduce laundry or going to bed early to save on electricity. "Can I help?" she asked, moving beside Sarah to fill a pot with water. "Sure, sweetheart. You can put the water on to boil." As Zoe placed the pot on the stove, she said quietly, "Lucas told Emma we could have ice cream after dinner, but I told him we don't have any. He got mad at me." Sarah sighed. "You're right, we don't have any. I'll talk to him." "It's okay, Mom. I know we can't afford extras right now." Zoe's matter-of-fact tone broke Sarah's heart a little. No 12-year-old should have to worry about what their family could or couldn't afford. "Hey," Sarah said, pulling her daughter into a hug. "I have some good news. We're invited to a special movie screening at the studio tomorrow evening, a new animated film that isn't in theaters yet." Zoe's eyes widened. "Really? We get to come to the studio?" "Yep, and it includes popcorn and drinks." "Can we tell Lucas and Emma now, please?" Sarah smiled. Zoe dashed into the living room, and moments later, excited chatter filled the apartment. Sarah listened to her children's enthusiasm as she prepared the simple pasta dinner, their happiness temporarily easing the weight of her constant financial worry. After dinner, which the children devoured so quickly it was clear they were hungrier than they had admitted, Sarah supervised homework, baths, and bedtime routines. Once all three were finally asleep, she sat at the small desk in the corner of her bedroom to review her budget for the 100th time, searching for any expense she could cut further. The electricity bill was due next week. The car needed gas. Lucas had outgrown his shoes. There was simply no way to make the numbers work without something giving. She had already canceled the internet. They now used the free Wi-Fi at the library, eliminated all streaming services, and stopped buying anything beyond the absolute necessities. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Keanu. "Movie passes all set for tomorrow. Ask for them at the VIP entrance, under your name. Hope your kids enjoy the film." She smiled, typing back, "Thank you. They're very excited." A moment later, another text arrived. "One more thing. The director mentioned they're providing pizza before the screening. Just wanted to make sure that works for your family. Any dietary restrictions?" Sarah felt a wave of relief at the mention of pizza. That would solve tomorrow's dinner dilemma. "Pizza sounds perfect. No restrictions. Thanks again for including us. My pleasure. See you tomorrow, Sarah." She set her phone down, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Gratitude for Keanu's kindness, certainly, but also a lingering shame that she needed it. She had always been independent, priding herself on providing for her family through hard work and careful planning. Mark's abandonment had shattered that security, leaving her scrambling to keep her children fed and housed. Still, she couldn't deny that Keanu's invitation was a bright spot in an otherwise difficult time. And the promise of pizza meant she could use her remaining cash for bread and lunch meat tomorrow, ensuring the kids would have proper lunches. With that small problem solved, Sarah finally went to bed, falling into an exhausted sleep almost immediately. Morning came too soon, with Emma climbing into her bed at 5:30, eager to talk about the movie screening that was still more than 12 hours away. "Do you think they'll have chocolate popcorn?" the 5-year-old asked, her eyes bright with excitement. "I don't know, sweetie," Sarah answered, pulling Emma close and enjoying a few minutes of cuddles before the hectic morning routine began. "But they'll definitely have regular popcorn." "And we get to see your work?" Emma continued, "Where the movies are made." "Part of it, yes." Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. "Do you think we'll see any movie stars?" Sarah thought of Keanu and smiled. "Maybe. You never know who might be around a movie studio." The morning proceeded with its usual chaos, making breakfast, the last of the bread toasted and spread with peanut butter, packing lunches, half sandwiches again, but at least with fresh lunch meat she would purchase on her way to work, and ensuring everyone had what they needed for school. As they piled into her aging Honda, Sarah noticed the gas light was on. She would need to put a few dollars of gas in the car today, which would leave even less for food. The constant calculations were exhausting. After dropping the kids at school, Sarah stopped at a discount grocery store. She purchased the cheapest loaf of bread and smallest package of turkey lunch meat she could find, spending $7.23 of her remaining cash. With the leftover $5.24, she put just enough gas in the car to last until payday. Arriving at work, Sarah hung Keanu's hoodie on the back of her chair. She had washed it the night before, wanting to return it to him if she saw him at the screening. It still held a faint scent of his cologne, something subtle and woodsy that made her think of quiet forests. The morning passed uneventfully. There was no sign of Keanu, and Sarah assumed he was filming on Stage 8 as scheduled. She focused on her work, processing paperwork for the departing productions and preparing for the new ones arriving next week. At lunchtime, Sarah opened her desk drawer to retrieve the small apple she had brought from home, the last piece of fruit in the house. But alongside the apple was something that hadn't been there before, a brown paper bag. Confused, Sarah opened it to find a gourmet sandwich from the studio cafe, a small container of fresh fruit, a cookie, and a bottle of water. Attached was a handwritten note. "Thought you might need lunch today. Looking forward to meeting your kids tonight." Sarah stared at the note, a lump forming in her throat. How had he known? And when had he placed it in her drawer? The gesture was both incredibly thoughtful and slightly embarrassing. Was her financial situation that obvious? Still, hunger won out over pride, and Sarah gratefully ate the sandwich at her desk while continuing to work. She saved the cookie for later, thinking Emma might enjoy it as an after-school snack. As the afternoon wore on, Sarah received a text from Keanu asking if 5:30 would work for meeting before the 6th screening. She confirmed the time, then spent the rest of the day alternating between focusing on work and wondering what her children would think when they met Keanu Reeves. At 3:30, Sarah left to pick up the kids from school, her mind racing with preparations. They would need to come directly back to the studio instead of going home first, which meant no time for showers or change of clothes. Would they be presentable enough for a VIP screening? Would they behave appropriately when meeting Keanu? These worries cycled through her mind as she waited in the school pickup line, watching for her children to emerge from the building. When they did, their faces lighting up at the sight of her car, Sarah made a decision. She would focus on enjoying this unexpected treat with her kids, without overthinking every detail. After all, what were the chances she would ever see Keanu Reeves again after tonight? "Mom, is that really him? Is that really Keanu Reeves?" Lucas whispered loudly, his eyes wide as they approached the small gathering area outside the studio's private theater. Sarah nodded, smiling at her son's awestruck expression. "Yes, that's really him." "He's Neo," Lucas exclaimed, referring to Keanu's character from The Matrix. "And John Wick." "You haven't seen John Wick, young man," Sarah reminded him. "That's definitely not appropriate for a 9-year-old. Lucas had the good grace to look sheepish. "Connor's big brother showed us some clips." Sarah made a mental note to speak with Connor's mother about appropriate movie supervision, but for now she had more immediate concerns, like how to gracefully introduce her children to Keanu Reeves without them completely losing their composure. They had arrived at the studio at 5:25, collected their passes from the VIP entrance as instructed, and been escorted to a comfortable lounge area where about 30 people, mostly studio executives and their families, were gathered for pre-screening refreshments. Pizza, as promised, was laid out on a buffet table, along with salads, fruit, and an assortment of beverages. Keanu stood near the center of the room, engaged in conversation with a woman whom Sarah recognized as the studio's head of animation. He was dressed simply in black jeans and a gray t-shirt, looking exactly as he had the day before. No Hollywood pretense, no entourage, just a man talking comfortably with his colleagues. "He looks different than in the movies," Zoe observed, studying Keanu thoughtfully. "More normal." "Is he a superhero in real life too?" Emma asked, clutching Sarah's hand tightly. Sarah smiled. "No, sweetie. In real life, he's just a person like us, a very nice person who makes movies. But a lot richer," Zoe added pragmatically. Before Sarah could respond, Keanu looked up and noticed them standing near the entrance. He excused himself from his conversation and made his way toward them, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Sarah," he greeted her, then turned his attention to the children. "And these must be Emma, Lucas, and Zoe. Your mom has told me all about you." The children stared up at him with varying expressions of awe, Zoe managing a polite hello, while Lucas seemed temporarily struck mute. Emma, always the least inhibited, stepped forward and asked plainly, "Are you famous?" Keanu laughed, a genuine sound that made several nearby people turn and smile. "Some people might think so," he answered, crouching down to Emma's level. "But I'm just someone who gets to play pretend for a living, like when you play dress-up or make-believe, except cameras record it, and they pay me for it." Emma considered this explanation seriously. "That sounds like the best job ever." "It has its moments," Keanu agreed, still smiling. He stood up and addressed all three children. "I'm really glad you could come tonight. The movie we're watching is about a little girl who discovers she can talk to animals. I think you might like it." "Cool." Lucas finally found his voice. "Do the animals fight bad guys?" "Some of them do," Keanu confirmed, "but mostly it's about friendship and being brave." "My mom said there's pizza," Emma stated, looking hopefully toward the buffet. Sarah felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "Emma, that's not—" "Your mom is right," Keanu interjected smoothly. "There is definitely pizza, and you should all help yourselves. I recommend the vegetable one. They use this amazing roasted garlic in the sauce." Sensing the children's eagerness, Sarah nodded. "Go ahead and get some food, but stay together, please. I'll be right there." The three children needed no further encouragement, moving as a unit toward the pizza buffet, with Zoe taking charge of guiding her younger siblings. "They're wonderful," Keanu observed, watching them go. "You must be very proud." "I am," Sarah agreed. "Thank you for inviting us. This is a real treat for them, for all of us." "It's my pleasure." He gestured toward the buffet. "Shall we join them?" I wasn't kidding about that vegetable pizza. As they walked toward the food, Sarah noticed she was receiving curious glances from several studio executives. She self-consciously smoothed her simple blouse, the one with a now faded coffee stain, visible since she had decided to return Keanu's hoodie, which was now draped over her arm. "Oh, I brought this back," she said, offering the hoodie to Keanu. "Thank you for loaning it to me." He shook his head. "Keep it, really. It looks better on you anyway." Before Sarah could insist, Lucas appeared at her side, his plate piled high with pizza. "Mom, they have 5 different kinds, and brownies for dessert." "Don't forget to take some salad, too," she reminded him, smiling at his enthusiasm. "Already on it," Zoe called from the salad section, where she was helping Emma construct a small plate of vegetables. Sarah felt a surge of pride watching her children navigate the buffet with good manners despite their excitement. Even in their current financial difficulties, they had maintained the values she had worked hard to instill in them. "Smart kids," Keanu observed. "Most would skip straight to dessert." "They know the rules," Sarah said. "Vegetables before sweets." They joined the children at a small table, and for the next 20 minutes, conversation flowed easily as they ate. Keanu asked each child questions about their interests and hobbies, listening with genuine attention to Lucas's detailed explanation of his latest video game obsession, Zoe's description of her school's drama program, and Emma's earnest account of her stuffed animal collection. Not once did he check his phone or appear distracted, giving the children the same focused attention he had given Sarah during their lunch the previous day. It was a quality Sarah found increasingly rare in adults, this ability to be fully present in a conversation. As they finished eating, a studio assistant announced that the screening would begin in 5 minutes. The children quickly finished their brownies and gathered their napkins and plates to dispose of properly. "Before we go in," Keanu said, reaching into his pocket, "I have something for each of you." He produced 3 small packages wrapped in simple brown paper. "Just a little welcome gift,"